Before time immortal, the dark and stormy nights arose from creation's primordial nectar. Brought to this world as both muse and master, to deliver mortals from misery and the mundane. Welcome, lords and ladies. It's the dark and stormy nights. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Dark and Stormy Nights. Once again, I am Loki.
And I am Odin.
And I am Tyr.
And we are coming back to talk about the Dale chapter. Chapter 3, right?
Yep.
Okay. I had a lot of issue writing this chapter. It's rather long. So we're not gonna talk about the whole thing. We're not gonna read the whole chapter. We're gonna read a couple parts. So we'll
some selections.
Yeah, some selections. We've selected 2 major segments. We're going to gloss over the rest. We'll talk about it, but we're not going to read everything. It's just too much. And besides, we'll leave you something to read when the book comes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want me to get into this, or?
Yeah, I think you can go ahead and start with the opening part of chapter. What did we decide? This is chapter 2 now?
I thought it was chapter 3.
It was originally chapter 3, but we bumped it in front of the villains, right?
Did we?
Yeah.
I thought that's what you discussed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it makes a little more sense in the timeline.
It does make more. I think it'll help with the flow of the book.
Yeah, I agree. So bear with me because I need glasses to read, and this is a rough draft, so this is completely uncompleted. But I think this is where we're going to go with it. So without further ado, it began to storm outside as the team returned to the brownstone. The team continued to argue as they entered. Zara set Dale down in the parlor. He sat nervously as they bickered. Something about teamwork, responsibility, and ego. Dale wasn't sure what it was all about. There were too many voices getting too loud for his liking. Dale hid under a chair for comfort from both the turmoil and the storm. Nobody even paid attention to him. They just continued to yell. Everybody except the middle-aged man that nobody was addressing manning the mechanical job board, and Meredith, who meticulously shook the rain from her parasol, then closed it and gingerly put it away. Next, she gracefully removed her cape and gently hung it up. Meredith then went into another room out of Dale's sight. He thought a moment about running after her, but he decided against it as he looked over at the chaotic scene happening between the rest of the housemates. Dale found himself too intimidated to leave the comfort of the chair. As his nervousness welled to a peak, Meredith reappeared with 2 bowls in her hands and a neatly folded newspaper under her arm. Meredith gracefully set the bowls down in a far corner of the room. She looked over at Dale and patted her leg as if to summon him. Dale knew exactly what she meant and trotted to her side. He gently nuzzled up to her for a moment. She rubbed his head and patted his side, and then motioned for him to the food in one of the bowls. Dale looked to the other bowl, which he could see contained water, and then back to the food. Before he could even make out what comprised the contents, he dove in face first. Meredith patted Dale on the head and began to lay out the newspaper across the parlor floor. Dale had almost forgotten about the bickering, and was only reminded of it as Wilhelm shouted, "Fine!" and then slammed his bedroom door. Zara and Hammond continued to argue, however. Hammond never raised his voice and only seemed to shield himself with arrogant tones. Dale was enjoying his snack way too much to pay attention to the contents of the conversation, but he was happy it was winding down as he noticed the exhaustion in Zara's voice. Meredith finished lining the parlor floor and then gave Dale one more kind pat on the head, which he nuzzled into momentarily, and then, like a ghost, she seemed to float up the stairs. Dale finished his snack and then turned back to Zara and Hammond, just in time for Zara, exhausted and frustrated, to finish her rant with, "Could we just act more like a team? Can we each have a little more personal responsibility and cohesion?" Hammond, finishing lighting a cigar before answering her, "I will try harder to include you all in the plan." Zara, with an eye roll while turning away toward the stairs, "Good enough," she sighed and clopped up the stairs. Dale watched Hammond eye Zara as she walked up the stairs. As he heard the door close with a squeak and a thud, Hammond set immediately to work scavenging about. Dale watched him take bits and pieces off of various things about the house. He would reach into a tool belt concealed across his waist from time to time to switch tools, and in a flash he would have a screw here, a bolt there, the picture frame hanging wire, and once he was done, taking pieces, he would set to quickly covering his tracks, leaning the table against the wall, balancing the picture frame on the nail directly without the wire, and so on. Hammond met eyes with Dale at one point as he removed the nut that held the seat on the chair Dale liked to lay under, and with a finger pressed to his lips as if to shush the pig from ratting him out, he set to work removing his prize from the seat. In a moment, the nut was free, and Hammond was off to claim his next prize. Dale was just about to lose interest when a creak in a loose floorboard could be heard approaching the stairs, and Hammond froze in his tracks, for a moment appearing like a statue until the floor creaked again. It was apparent now that whoever it was finding the loose floorboards was moving this way. Hammond arrived at the same conclusion as Dale, and was gone almost before Dale could take notice. Dale awaited the owner of the noisy footsteps, only to be disappointed. No further sounds came from the area. Whoever it was must have learned to not retrace their steps. Dale waited so long, but nothing. All that could be heard now was the rhythm of the storm outside beating upon the old house. The excitement of the day made Dale's eyes heavy. He tried to stay awake, but he just couldn't. Dale barely made it into the antique armchair with a struggle and a shimmy before the exhaustion had become too much. He had almost fallen asleep with his bum on the floor. Once in a comfortable position, he was dreaming in no time. So that's just the first scene in the first chapter. There's several scenes. But this is just kind of introducing Dale to the house. I felt it was important to show the character finally settling into the environment before we get into the rest.
Right, settling into the environment, and then also the discord between the main characters.
Right, so
establishing normality.
Right, so yeah, just like the longer story, you're going to establish normality over a couple of chapters. I'm establishing normality in this particular chapter with the first scene of the chapter.
Right, and then a quick little glimpse also at our ghost, Robert. So, like, that's a little intro to him because he hasn't been mentioned thus far.
Right, and I glossed over him, and I'm not sure people picked up that he wasn't
supposed to be there.
Right,
I agree.
Well, yeah,
so,
that's your Fight Club reveal.
Because Dale doesn't know that he's not always there.
Right. And we'll give it away later, but right now, I think it's a nice little Easter egg, especially for those who won't necessarily know just yet. So, I go on to a second scene where he wakes up in the middle of the night and he discovers Wilhelm, and Wilhelm is sobbing, and Dale comforts him, but not for Wilhelm's sake. Really, it's about getting food, and but they both make out in the deal, I think. And I think it makes both of them seem somewhat charming and flawed. And then after that, I didn't really finish that section, but I come close, and then I think he wanders up and he meets Zara, and I've got a big section on Zara where she spends time with Dale, and she's actually washing up for a date and everything, and he comes in there and gives her a fright, and then makes off with her sandwich and what have you. Right,
and then he sees a softer side of Zara than really the rest of the team even knows exists.
Right, yes. Well, and he also sees Zara, and if he was a human, it would be a compromising position, but,
but he's a little pig.
Pet material. Right. Which will come into play later.
Right.
Because then from there, he comes across Robert, the ghost, spying on Meredith, who has no idea he's spying on her. And then she quickly dismisses him. And then Hammond.
Right.
Did we want me to go ahead and read Hammond now? Or do you want to talk about what we have?
We could. It's up to you. I feel like your Hammond section is going to take a good chunk of time.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty lengthy, so.
We can come back and do it after the break.
Okay.
But why don't we get to discussing?
What do you guys think so far? Notes? I realize, like I said, this is a rough draft.
Right.
And so I know there's a lot of building to do on this.
Well, I don't know. It's from the pig's perspective, but it's also third-person omniscient.
Yes, it's just...
So it's difficult to know how much to reveal and how much not to, but it would be nice to, like, when the pig's being comforted, like, enjoys the warmth of the hand or something,
Right, well,
some sort of...
And there's some more polishing that'll come in revisions.
Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Now, I specifically did not give the contents of the conversation. I mean, there was a little bit of,
Bits and pieces.
As I felt Dale would pay attention. I feel like the narrator is following Dale around, and what Dale's doing is more important than anything else.
Right.
And Dale's specific take on the interaction, less than what the interaction.
Well, there is an interesting note. We have a ghost. That could be the narrator. I mean, it might involve rewrites on all of our parts, but that could be an interesting direction to go.
I don't think Robert can leave the house, so it doesn't help us in those.
I don't feel like he can either.
In those angles. Now, I'm not against A Day in the Life of Robert as another chapter.
Yeah, we could totally do that as a chapter.
Well, that's not a bad idea.
As of right now, Dale's the only person who knows he's there or can see him or anything like that.
But
that's actually really interesting because it would have to be further into the book because a Robert chapter is going to reveal a lot.
Yeah.
Because we established that he's the one who's pointing them in the right direction. He's the one who's manipulating the job board and trying to force them to work together.
Well, not to mention, he may well have known a lot more of what's going on than has ever been revealed up until that point.
Right.
But what I was also saying, now, I'm not saying we have to go this direction, but if you wanted to, a ghost doesn't have to haunt a place, it can haunt a person.
Yeah, the problem is, and I agree with you, I do think that is a possibility. But in Robert's case, Robert, I feel, is a very intelligent person who is very capable at his job. And as much as I think he would want to haunt Meredith specifically because that was his love, right? I feel like he has a mission, right? He knows he has to accomplish something, and he needs the whole team to do it.
Okay. Plus, it would make the dates very awkward.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure that because I do feel that the Meredith and Robert thing was a true love lost.
Correct. I feel the same way, and I don't feel like she's dating.
No, I don't.
I mean, at some point in the story,
I think that she doesn't seem to be mourning by other people's perspectives, but rather in her own way.
Right.
She is mourning, and I think she'll be in mourning.
And we said that Robert's death is relatively.
You don't
recent.
have to be over a mourning period to not try and re-immerse yourself in that world of dating. I mean, she could be.
No, but there's still a period. This team is just coming together.
I get that.
And that didn't happen until after Robert's death. The fact that they're still not working together shows that they're still early on.
And maybe that's something I need to put in here somewhere is how fresh the team is, right? So maybe I'll have to work that into one of the conversations. We do have the end argument, which we're not going to do right now. But maybe in the end argument, somebody comes to the conclusion, you know what, it's just that we're so new, maybe. That we need to work together a little more. We need to try.
Right. This is something that's addressed in the character bios, but it's not addressed in the story itself yet.
So maybe this is where we do.
But in a story, you don't necessarily have to follow every sequence as it goes along.
Sure.
At some point, we may fast forward. I mean, we've even discussed the possibility of having what we were calling the Hex Files on the blog site.
Sure, and they'll give up little details, but I don't think the Hex Files will be pivotal to the story. They're just going to be nice little extras.
But my point is, we may fast forward as we go along, and there might, you know what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah.
So the story will change, the characters will change, and from chapter to chapter, it could be drastic if it time lapses enough.
We definitely want the characters to change, right? I mean, they're going to grow, they're going to be changed by this whole situation.
Right.
They're not going to be the same people in the end. Right now, they are a disjointed mess. By the end of the story, I want them to be close to a well-oiled machine. I think that they should be much stronger by the time they face this big bad, this unknown figure at this right now. They don't know who it is or what it is. They don't even know that there's a problem yet.
Right, except for Robert.
Right, Robert knows something's going on.
Right.
They don't. And I think that's the benefit of being dead in his case is that he has truly underworld contacts that are well beyond our ability to reach. So
I'm not saying that Robert has to be glued to the house because that kind of might mess with his knowledge of other things going on. But I'm saying he's not necessarily stalking everything the team goes for. He needs to be able to find information on his own as well.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out what the rules are and stick to them once we've established it. But it is interesting. With him being a ghost, he might see in a whole different spectrum, so if there's magic going on, but he also might be more susceptible to it as well, being controlled, summoned.
Well, we've set a precedence because Dale can see ghosts and other magical things.
Well, but he's more than just a pig too. So being an animal or being supernatural, either end might lend him that.
I think it's I don't know, because we need to understand I think it's specifically the spell that was done to him
Right.
Because Wilhelm is also aware. It cannot be that makes Dale able to see him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's no lore that werewolves can pick out every single supernatural thing.
Normally, werewolves aren't that shifters.
Right.
I'm sorry.
He might be able to smell something funny about Dale.
Oh, sure. I think he can smell other lycanthropes, but I don't know that or vampires, things of that nature, things that smell different, but I don't think that he smells magic per se.
Maybe Robert can come and go through mirrors or something like that, He can use mirrors as gateways or something.
Yeah.
The thing is also, Robert is not your average ghost.
Right.
He was a dealer in arcane artifacts.
And so died with some on him, probably.
He knows magic to a level that and like the supernatural, he knows these things, and the paranormal. He knows these things to an extent that your average ghost doesn't know. Right.
Well, I mean, look at older religious practices or mythology. When somebody would sacrifice, a ram or something, the concept is that they're burning the good portions to the gods, and that they would eat the spiritual energy of that matter that's been burnt, so the matter is transformed into spirit. So what I'm trying to say is, maybe when I'm sorry, what's his name again?
Robert.
Yeah. When Robert dies, whatever he's wearing, he might have the spiritual aspect of that. So if he has a magic talisman or something, some of that magic might extend into his
We did establish in the backstory that I don't think it was not on air, but we did establish that he died with some sort of talisman on him, some sort of artifact.
Some of that effect may carry on.
In the job, and Zara took it from his body
and took back to his
wife.
She scooped it up and took off.
She did.
So they have it.
Right.
Okay.
He was on a job. He didn't get both of the things that he was after, but he did have that talisman or artifact.
Further, that might link her to him, and if she's wearing it.
She's not wearing it. She gave it to Meredith.
Okay.
Yeah, Zara grabbed it because she was with him.
And then immediately ran to his wife.
Yeah, but then Meredith may well be tied to him in a different way that she wasn't before.
So, yeah.
Which would also make it easier for her to be haunted by him if we wanted to do that.
Right. I mean, as it is, he's manipulating things in the brownstone. I think it might take some time to get better and better at this being dead thing.
Sure.
Learning
curve.
Right. So in the beginning, it's little things. He figures out he can manipulate the job board.
Yeah, but it's not like
starts to figure out that Dale can see him. Little things build up to, okay, what else can I do?
It's not like Patrick Swayze in what was a Ghost.
Oh,
it's not like he's learning it from some crazy guy in a subway and it takes some 3/4 of the movie to even meet the character. This is a guy who's steeped in that world.
Yeah. No, I think he knows what's possible. But it's like using that third arm on your back that you never had before.
Oh, yeah, I get that. But at least you know it's there.
Sure, because it's hard to sit. But otherwise, I've never used third arm. Not to mention a third arm you can't see or feel, even weirder, It was always my question with superheroes, right? Is if you've never used a superpower before, if you can't see it, if you can't feel it.
I think that you do feel to some degree. But we're getting off topic.
Right. But it's flexing a muscle you've never had before.
Exactly. Here's the thing, is you can be, as a regular human, outside shooting hoops, this one shot is possible, but you can't necessarily do it until you practice and practice and practice.
Right, but you would never practice it unless you knew it was possible.
All right.
That's kind of what
he knows what's possible.
That's his leg up.
But he still has to build the skill to do it.
I'm just saying his training montage would be faster than another Ghost.
All right,
Yes, I agree.
Do you want to come back after a break and talk about Hammond?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we're going to take this break. We'll be right back.
You know what I'd like to do on a dark and stormy night? Yeah, that's right. But right after that, I'd like to turn to my favorite podcast. We are happy to join you in your post-coital bliss. Enjoy.
Oh my.
Vision's bothering me.
All right, so I had to call in reinforcements because my vision's bothering me and my glasses make me nauseous. So for this next part, Tier's going to read for me. Are you ready?
Okay, you guys ready?
Here we go.
All right. Dale walks into the kitchen, hoping to shame some unsuspecting eating party into sharing their snack. Damn it, Dale thinks. All he finds is Hammond looting the icebox. Then the pantry, then a drawer, pretty much confirming to Dale his suspicion. Hammond is shameless. What the hell, Dale thinks. I've got nothing else to do. Dale follows Hammond as he loads his pockets with various items. Dale can't seem to piece together what it is that Hammond is building up to. His attention firmly belongs to Hammond. Aside from the curiosity, there's always a chance something will fall on the floor. Hammond finishes up his raid of the kitchen, casting guilty glances at Dale as he goes. Suddenly, and without warning, Hammond crossed the kitchen, making a beeline for the back door of the brownstone. He descended the back steps in a single leap. Dale did his best to keep up, nearly stumbling down the steps in his scramble to scoop up his payoff, a slice of prosciutto which had fallen from Hammond's pocket, and keep his balance at the same time. Hammond scrambles for the shed door, obviously attempting to shut Dale out, but he's having none of it. Dale scrambles between Hammond's legs and makes it into the shack before he can shut the door. With all of his motivation sucked out of him, Hammond drops all sense of urgency and slowly closes and locks the door on the shed. He sets his food on the filthy counter and then turns to wind a crank down the wall, which causes some glass jars to flicker to life, lighting the shack. Dale is suddenly caught in awe, almost forgetting about his objective, Hammond's food. The walls of the small shack are lined with various machines and contraptions. Dale isn't even sure what he's looking at, just that it is all alive with motion and sound. In one of the contraptions, Dale sees a strange little man, only a couple of inches high. The minuscule man angrily gestures and screams at Dale through the glass of his strange clockwork prison. Dale has no idea what he's saying. It certainly isn't English. Dale finds himself mesmerized by the little man. He pokes at the contraption with his nose, causing it to roll a little, and the little man to fall on his ass. "Oi," Hammond raises his voice. "Leave that be. Brownies can be right bastards should they get free, and that would be one hell of a pickle, ain't it?" "You know what?" Hammond grunts. Then he snatches the contraption. "Let me at that a moment." Hammond sets the contraption on his workbench and pulls a wound-up set of wires from the wall. At the end of the wires are a strange set of clips with teeth on them. Dale gets nervous, sensing a hint of sadism in Hammond's intentions. Hammond hooks the wires to the contraption. The brownie suddenly gets panicky and nervous, skittering around his prison. Hammond flips a switch and begins to crank the handle slowly. The ribbons of electricity grow brighter and more erratic. The brownie holds himself to the glass sides of the jar, obviously frightened and sweating, even from Dale's perspective. Dale dances around in circles nervously, unhappy at Hammond's game, when suddenly a strange, hollow popping sound, darkness, and a string of profanities in a Scottish accent. The brownie hops from the workbench and snaps his fingers. Then, in a series of pings, bangs, snaps, and flashes of light, the shack burst into a deadly symphony. Dale darts after the brownie, who's made a break for the now burst-open front door, and Hammond makes a brave attempt to escape himself as it seems the shack is now trying to kill him. The brownie and Dale run up the back steps of the brownstone and into the back door. A moment later, Hammond comes running behind them, bearing a shotgun, screaming, "Don't let him get away." Dale skitters across the floor, unable to gain traction. The brownie makes a beeline for the front door. Hammond levels the shotgun at the brownie, who once again snaps his finger, causing the shotgun to fall apart. "Damn it," he growls as he runs faster to catch the little man. Thinking he'll corner the brownie against the front door of the house, Hammond makes a dive for it, sailing through the air over Dale. At that moment, Zara opens the door and Hammond tumbles into her. The brownie runs between her legs and Dale slides up into the pile-up in the doorway. Meredith enters the parlor from her room to observe the commotion, and she immediately notices the pile-up, looks over to the bar, only to see the hindquarters of Wilhelm. Okay.
So I want to thank Tyr for reading that part. We had a few technical difficulties. I'd actually read through it a couple times before that, and unfortunately, the first time was very bad quality, so we had to redo it. And then the second time, we lost the audio because the program started glitching out. So now we are back, and I think that sounded much better than what I had.
A couple of trips there.
So, yeah, you didn't write it, so it was, not intuitive to you.
Right.
Like
and reading on mic's not always the easiest.
Oh, no. It's a big pain in the butt. So, nonetheless, I think that was great. It was much better than what we had before anyways. So, anyways, let's talk about the end of this chapter, because that's really not the end of it.
Right.
What we get to there is the team kind of all comes together in the parlor and things come to a head.
Right, and they kind of end up colliding both literally and figuratively.
And that's the idea, right? So this whole thing comes together. It's kind of hard to keep your cool in the situation as it is.
Right.
And they don't. They blow up on each other.
Right.
Zara's already angry from a bad date. And then Hammond's brownie gets away.
Right. Had a little mishap.
And brownies are a big pain in the butt because they can manipulate entropy. They can cause bad luck and for things to fall apart.
And he just let it loose in the world?
Well, that, and he was probably studying it, seems, right? And,
right.
Well, torturing it at the point we get to it. But they're little bastards, and I think maybe we'll see more of them later.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the team I think argues, and things just come to a head. And Dale's getting nervous. Dale can't handle the stress of the situation. We've discussed that Wilhelm has a problem controlling his wear nature when he gets nervous or when he gets upset. And I think the same thing happens here, right? So Dale maybe pisses himself, and then boom, he's a little man. And then silence. I think the whole room goes silent. Everybody kind of, oh shit, because throughout this chapter there was compromising positions that each person was in. I realize we only talked about a couple of people here, but Wilhelm drunkenly spilled his guts to Dale.
Right.
In his part of the chapter, we didn't talk about it. This would have just gone on forever had we.
Right, down the whole thing, sure. And then Zara's softer side, which basically none of the team knows even exists. And Dale was there to witness that.
And a little bit of baby talking, which
Right.
nobody knows Zara's capable of, and then nudity,
Right.
and then and Hammond being a thief, and just
And then maybe
all
a
around
moment
disagreeable.
between Robert and Meredith.
Right, and I don't think Meredith is so ashamed or anything. I don't think Meredith did
No, I don't think so either.
That would have shamed her, but it's enough to be so that everybody's like, oh shit.
Right.
You
So
know?
it kind of stops the argument on a dime, and it's, uh-oh.
Right, and then the job board pings.
Right.
And it's a job for everybody. So it's a good time to reveal. And everybody's like, wait, what? Because the job board, while there is a certain level of automation, it's more crank this, pull that, and
Right.
it does stuff.
And so what we had discussed was that part of their argument, when they do that literal collide, everything blows up. And part of it is, well, you keep giving me all the jobs, and it's, well, who's taking these jobs, and who's taking the money for these jobs? How are we broke if we keep going out on this? And it's going to come to this whole, well, it's not me doing it, and and everybody, it's not it,
Right, and everybody assumes everybody else is lying about it, and then they're all here to witness the board light up with
Right.
nobody. But when you investigate, every one of these scenarios has had something to go after. Every one of these scenarios is,
Right.
you
So
go-
the jobs are real,
Right. So
but where are they coming from?
Correct. So that is the question.
And I feel like maybe they can account for some of their normal jobs, the everyday, like the vampire den, or, your average, shifter or whatever issue, like the basics
Right.
that they're used to taking care of, the minor pests. But then I feel like there's some bigger things that are more part of the overarching
And I can't wait to
plot
write some of
line.
those. And
Yeah,
I
that's
think it's gonna be
fun. But I mean, I think that those are the things that Robert is specifically pointing them towards.
Sure.
And those are the things where they're like, what the heck, who's taking the money for these jobs,
Well, yeah, and I think that maybe we're trying to scoop up some of the artifacts that have been spilled into the world.
Right.
And,
And I think it was you who mentioned previously that maybe, there's a backlog. They don't even know what this is. They're just going to toss it aside until Wilhelm has the time to do the research on it.
Sure, yeah.
So they have like Pandora's box tossed into the back room or something.
Right, yeah, there might be a basement full of crap that it's just like, this is some dangerous shit, but nobody knows. It's
Yeah,
just, until we get to it.
shove
who
it on a
knows?
shelf till Wilhelm has time
Right.
to research.
And then, the question I think we need to address eventually what they're doing with some of these creatures. And I realize we talked about the idea of you're just dropping them at the edge of the woods somewhere or what have you. But I think there's going to be more to that. There's a little more to it than
The
that.
creatures?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the lower level cockroaches are just going to get killed.
I think the brownies are going to be quite a foil to Hammond, because he's largely mechanical based.
Well, and I felt like it was a good reason why he hates them. That he creates his
because
devices.
they're manipulating his inventions.
Well, they can they can make
Causing
him
a lot
fall
of fail.
apart and fail, and,
Right.
and he's already got a high failure rate.
Well, yeah,
Right,
it's kind
right.
of hard to test something with those around.
Right.
And if you do like a Darby O'Gill thing,
they're like his
which is
nemesis.
a
Right.
really old reference that almost nobody in the audience would get, but where it's like he could come back and like be his personal foil. Like that could be like the king of the brownies, and they're just like
I
haunting
love it.
Hammond.
Yeah, like a reoccurring, like this guy's gonna fuck with him because he trapped him.
So Hammond has no idea anything he takes in the field, if it's going to work or not, or if there's a brownie around to make it fail at just the wrong time.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it might be interesting if the brownie gets out in the world and, like you said, he builds up power and everything like that, and then it's cursing at him. And he's like, I don't understand what you're saying, and then it's got some. He says, "Oh, you son of a bitch," and he's got help.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Some sort of mid-level fey creature that speaks the language of them.
Right.
And like they end up meeting down the line.
Right.
That'd be kind of interesting. Like all the things they've run into, all the damage they've done.
Or maybe the brownie becomes so obsessed with Hammond that he starts picking up gestures or language in order to specifically insult Hammond.
Or figures out that Hammond can speak Scottish and English and maybe bothers to learn. Who knows? Mm-hmm. You know. Or there could be a fey creature that can translate.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Like a babblefish, a fey babblefish.
Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily like the group, and on top of that, most of the fey are already pissed at them.
Right. Well, but I don't see that. Look, I don't think that fey creatures really have a lot to worry about from the group. I think that they displace them. You might not like the fact that they've kicked you out of this old lady's house or whatever, but we're not killing you like the other groups would.
No, but Hammond literally just tortured a brownie.
That's another story, yes.
Well, that's
I think
brownies.
he's kind of got something coming from the brownies at this point.
That's what I'm saying. Is this specific brownie turns out to be like, I will get you then.
Right.
You know?
Chieftain of the Muddy Tribe.
Yeah. Vampires and demons.
Like maybe he's the leader of his little group.
Vampires and demons are one thing. I think they don't have as big a problem killing
Banishings
those.
and things like that, sure. But, like, yeah, for the little creatures. I don't think that anybody else really knew what Hammond was doing with the little guy either.
No, well, like I said, I think Hammond has a personal hatred for brownies. And I think that that's what that was about.
But it's also kind of interesting because we're playing in a steampunk sandbox.
Right.
And if you don't want an age to advance, there's a good reason why you're never going to really get past a punch card computer.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if these guys are running around, they can make anything fail. So, oh god, just dump a bunch of brownies on your enemy.
Yeah, this is like the height of technology you're going to have with these creatures running around.
You want to stop Apple from ever happening? Leave brownies in Steve
So they'd
Jobs' house?
almost be better off if they could manage to get a brownie on their side and then let it loose in their enemy's territory.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if they knew who their enemy was, you know, or if their enemy manipulated any kind
that
of
could be really dangerous when you consider how much gas power. I mean, it's the oil lamps and all that. There's these, like little piping system through everybody's houses. Houses burn down all the time from crap like this. I mean, you could turn everything around them against them.
Now, before we get into anything with people say, "Oh, that's not what brownies do." Yes, I know. I completely made this up.
Yeah, I know it's more of a gremlin thing, but whatever. Brownies are machines.
My gremlins do something completely else. Yeah, so
they have magic, so why not?
But yeah, I know you don't have to get on there and say this isn't what brownies do. I know this is what my brownies do. So, but I just want to point that out before we got a ton of emails saying you're an idiot. So
I mean,
it is what it is. I like it this way. It'll be what it'll be.
It's a fictional story, and we made the damn rules.
So, yeah, I don't know. I like the idea that maybe they can be
But I promise that, down the road, that brownies aren't going to change and suddenly...
Oh, they would have to make...
Right, this is our lore now. It's like, once we've said it, that's it.
Right.
There would have to be some sort of peace treaty made up and some sort of trading of goods.
Oh, Lord, don't make trades with Faye.
It'd be funny if, like, I don't know, Meredith made Hammond take a punch from a brownie or something like that to make up to him or something like that.
I'm sure it'd be something small, but it's something that he'd have to swallow his pride over.
But it might be funny if Hammond's expecting this little, 3-inch tall man to have
and he
no
has
kind
the
of
wallop
impact.
of a full size.
And it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, but it could be something stupid like a gift of a cantaloupe. When you're doing Fae, the rules and logic may not necessarily be in what you would imagine.
Sure. But yeah, no, they could be useful later. So, or they could be useful to the enemy. You don't know.
Yeah, they're kind of a wild card.
So, but, I mean, if we're talking about Desmond being the enemy, it's unlikely. Because they're strange creatures, and he hates the strange.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I think they're going to be small and overlooked, but if there's any reason for him to get a bad name, he could easily.
Right.
Plus, the other thing is that if we are sticking to traditional Fae lore in some ways, then in order for Desmond to really end up in a contract with a brownie, he would be entering into a deal with a Fae creature, and he's going to be as much on the hook.
Right.
Because you can't deal with Fae.
Right. No, that's why I think
always a
the
trick.
preferred methods of Desmond and Talbot is to just let things loose on the world.
Right. I agree.
And let it all sort itself out.
Yeah, and so therefore it wouldn't be any kind of contract between the two. It would just be let havoc loose.
Right. And then destroy whatever's left in the aftermath.
And I think that even with the Jorogumo, like we said, he's going to bring that into being with a binding contract.
Right, that's more of a summons.
But
that's a whole different thing.
Right, and it's badly done, so she's going to easily get out of it in the end, or the team will find a way to get her out of it or something.
Right, but they're bringing her from the demon world, and the contract was set just to bring her across.
Well, and to have her do his bidding, go after the team.
Right.
But because Desmond is so overconfident, you know, he thinks that whatever he throws together is solid.
Well, we were
he
talking
definitely
about
overestimates his
later
ability.
how humorous would be to have her as this resource that's kind of operating like as a secretarial role, but she's also research. She knows things. She's part of that community.
Yeah, she has knowledge that they don't have.
But if in the summons contract, I mean, generally, you know, you do the whole circle. There's protection. Don't harm me. You know, I'll let you loose, but you got to do this for me and not hurt my people. That might still be on the table. She can't actively hurt them, but doesn't mean she can't work against them.
Right.
Which might be exactly why she takes that role.
Sure, yeah, instead of going into battle for them, she can't actually harm Desmond and his crew, but she can help his enemies.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm
well,
not...
they would need enough to be able to break her part of the bargain that she has to go after the team.
Right. Or it's poorly written and they can just point that out. It's like, it actually doesn't quite say that in the wording. And I don't know.
Well, yeah, just what exactly was the wording?
Right.
And then, yeah. I mean, that's easy enough to do.
Right.
And especially when dealing with, like, Fae or Genie or any of this.
Technicality is everything.
Yes, you can never phrase it well enough.
Right. It just needs to occur to somebody.
A demon that's several hundred years old would see that for herself in advance, right? They're always going to look for any way to get out of the contract on their own.
Sure.
So
but you're also talking about a Japanese demon being summoned by an English guy. I mean, do they speak all languages equally?
I mean, she's a spirit.
Well, it could mean that maybe Desmond violated the contract. You know, that there's something that he can't harm her either, and he tries to. You know? So, I don't know. Let's come back after the break and we'll discuss this some more. Odin needs you. As Ragnarok approaches, your likes, ratings, and comments give him strength. Help the cause at The Dark and Stormy K1 on Twitter, thedarkandstormynights.home.blog, or at Podbean, iTunes, or Google Play Music. Let's catch up to where we are going to be, right? So let's start at the beginning and just kind of do a quick little recap and get to what the next thing we're going to talk about is and the next thing after that.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding tedious of retreading, we're finding, like you would in any writing process, that you have to sometimes change the order of things. Yeah, you know, what you think the outline is where it's going to go doesn't always play out the same.
Well, and thankfully Tier has this pretty well organized, so why don't you let us know where we are?
Okay, so I think that right now the overall outline of the story, which has been modified a little bit, but I think that it's still flowing pretty good. So we opened up with establishing that the team is kind of not in sync in that first chapter.
Right, they're Backstreet Boys.
Oh my god. Anyway, they're I think that we'll maybe expand on that first chapter a little bit too, but you know, and then from there we switched it. So now chapter 2 is going to be what we just read about today.
Right.
And it's going to be a day in the life of Dale and seeing how the team meshes and or doesn't mesh. And then we're going from there into the chapter 3, which was the villains that Odin did. And we see a little bit of the interview process. We literally get to meet the villains as opposed to just having them as these ominous cloaked figures that nobody knows anything about. And then we start to learn that they know how their ritual messed up and that the magic went into the pig that they need to find. So from there, we talked about the next chapter being, it's time to find this pig. You did a little bit of that in the end of chapter 3, which we had switched. It was originally chapter 2, and now it's chapter 3. Right. And then from there, we're going to say that Jennifer, our brains of the bad guy operation, has figured out that the pig is with our team. Okay? And then from there, we talked about maybe Caleb and the new number 1, which is, I guess, taken on the name of Bob, regardless.
Bob 2.0.
Bob 2.0. And so they're going to try to get Dale. That's going to blow up in their faces. And so that chapter is what's coming next. That's the one that's in progress now. And then from there, I think that we're back to another good guy chapter, right? We're going to focus in more on Wilhelm. We're going to focus in on the Where's Anonymous. We're going to maybe get Dale out of the house a little bit. And then we're going to have the storyline start to revolve around the shifters going missing and pull the Jorogumo in a little bit.
Sure, yeah. I think that's a good point. I mean, we'll introduce her a little bit in the chapter before, and then she starts to insert herself into
Where's Anonymous and getting to know, and she's going to put Wilhelm in her sights. So we figured at the end of that chapter is where Wilhelm gets taken. And I think that the next chapter is going to be the team is now forced to come together to figure the situation out and to find a way to rescue Wilhelm.
Sure, yeah.
So we're on to another protagonist chapter. Right? Yes.
Right.
And that's where we're at, building that chapter, the rescue Wilhelm.
Okay, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So, we just have to come up with a couple of devices, like, how they figure out where he's at, or,
and I think that's kind of where Robert comes
where
in.
her lair is.
Right.
I guess the question is, how is he... I mean, I guess he's going to communicate through the board, right?
He has to communicate through the board. I feel like, really, the team is kind of self-absorbed at this point, so... You had mentioned that maybe they wouldn't notice Wilhelm gone right away. I feel like Robert definitely would. I mean, he's the central point of the whole team. They're all connected to him in some way.
Being a spirit, though, he could communicate in dreams.
Yeah,
That's
and
true.
Dale can see him too. And
Yeah,
plus,
Dale.
he's manipulating little things, right? So he might be able to let Dale into the room.
And this is a steampunk story. If he can manipulate mechanical devices, I mean, steampunk is all it could
That's
be
true.
everywhere.
Or knock things off a table.
Well, Hammond's shack, if he's rebuilt it by then,
Yeah.
I feel like Hammond works pretty quick. Or wherever he's put his workshop at this point.
Right.
He could be manipulating all these objects and stuff, because it's a mix of engineering and magic.
Like,
So-
what's that glowing in the shed? Oh, he's shaking a fairy. You don't know.
Well, right.
But,
Yeah.
but it gets them in the room for whatever they need.
Well, I think I would say...
There's lots of little ways you can do this.
I think that pixies are evil. So...
Or pixie, yeah.
Yeah, he might be juicing pixies or something.
Oh, wow.
So...
Juicing?
Yeah, why not?
Juicing them?
Yeah, put him through a cold press pixie.
Oh.
That's horrific.
Might give you a little buzz.
Better than a blender, I guess. Cold pressed pixie. Jesus.
But I'm just thinking that he might be using this, these magical creatures, the ones that are evil anyways, to extract energy to power his devices.
Does he at least kill the pixie first? Oh, does that make it lose the magic before you have the time to press it out?
I didn't think this out, but whatever we decide, we're gonna have to stick with it. So
Hammond's gonna die.
throw it in the dossier.
There's no way you can just poke the bear of the Fae community this much and not end up being
This is
murdered in the
right.
worst possible way.
He's just going after the night court, not the day court. I mean, it's not.
That's...
He's got a heart.
okay, fine. He only has half of the spiritual community after all.
So yeah, he's gonna have to
Jesus.
he's gonna have to make some good side packs. But that's pretty good, right? Now that I'm thinking about it, that might sound like a bad thing, but this is creating more story, right? If he's pissing off half the Fae community,
Speller pressing pixies? Yeah, that sounds like it.
They're actively hunting vampires and other nuisances.
Right.
On top of which, you have an entire half of the Fae community.
They're creating enemies. Yeah, this is
But
great.
you're kind of
It's
making
great.
Hammond
He's a dick.
not a great guy.
No, he's not a great guy. He's a dick.
Well, I mean...
But he's only going after the bad ones. It's just, is he handling it right? No. I mean...
He's a jerk.
But, we generally think that torture makes you the bad guy, even if you're torturing bad guys. But then we do it all the time. So...
Who's we?
Like governments and stuff,
Do you
Yeah, and it's
euthanize
generally
butterflies before you
accepted.
pin them to a...
No, I don't think they generally do. I think they just pin a butterfly down, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's keeping with the time period and the
Which is still
scientific,
disgusting.
way of things that were
that's
done.
True. It's
Nobody thinks the government is
historically
the good
accurate.
guy. If you cannot
So-
use that as a comparison.
Well, he's a human, so from his perspective,
Right. Well, yeah, and I think that things like pixies, I don't think they're human intelligence. I think they're animal intelligence, at best. Not justifying it, but, but they're dicks.
You know, we had a whole discussion of how smart animals actually are just an episode ago.
Some animals. Humans aren't intelligent.
In general.
Right, in general. But, I don't know.
You guys have taken this from comedy to, like, seriously dark.
All I was having him do...
Only if you think about
is
it.
torture dark creatures.
Do we not want our readers to think about it?
It's a little vague because the
Well, if you're laughing...
The readers aren't used to this world, so they don't know what's dark and what's light. I think we maybe have to point that out a little bit, but...
I don't think you're going to lighten up this kind of situation.
Like, fairies are good, pixies are bad. You know, like, it's just...
I do feel like all those ingredients he was bringing in there, I don't know if he was feeding the animals or just enjoying a sandwich, but it should be a ham sandwich.
So, yeah.
Aww.
Well, I said prosciutto.
Oh, my
goodness.
Prosciutto. And you made Dale eat it.
Dale ate it, yes. Dale... Pigs,
actually, pigs do.
Pigs will eat ham.
Yeah. It's not a good plan, but they will.
But, I don't know. I just thought he'd enjoy a piece of prosciutto, as I do.
You guys are disturbing.
I think eventually, I don't know, do we really have to go into lore, though, as to what everything is before we write it? I don't think we have to decide.
You can create it as you go, but be consistent once you create it.
Right.
You can never go back or rewrite it once it's written.
Right, now that brownies are powerful assholes, they're always powerful assholes, you know? I mean,
oh, yeah.
Well, they're not powerful individually. They're a nuisance.
They're a nuisance.
But you piss off a tribe by, like, I don't know, kidnapping its chieftain?
Can you imagine that much entropy manipulation in one place? That'd be insane.
Well, and we haven't really outlined
he's cursed.
a huge amount of the steampunk situation within the house. Like, are the doors, like, are the locks, like, steampunk
it might be a good
mechanical?
thing
You
to
mean like
Yeah.
a smart house? With, like, steam power?
But, like, steampunk, right?
We do have a master engineer on staff.
Right.
But I do feel like that enough of his stuff fails that they'd be afraid to make everything.
No, I think it's like,
you're
that's
right.
your room. You do what you want. You leave my house the hell
No,
alone.
like
I think
the
the
front
bread
and back
slicer
doors.
is super dangerous, right? Because it's like a series of saw blades that one after another, cutting the
I
bread.
do gotta wonder if there's like some
with
kind
no
of
safeties on it.
shotgun burglar system aimed at the door.
No, I agree.
An
That's what
anvil on the porch that just dropped down.
I'm saying the door would have some kind of like clockworky mechanical like lock.
That'd be kind of cool.
But they'd be like like you manually have to turn like a, I don't know, I'm imagining like a pirate ship wheel kind of thing to move everything in a way that locks the doors. But this way, Robert could manipulate it.
Yeah.
Like somebody's like, that's it, I'm out, and he's like, no, you're not.
Right. Well, maybe the thing that the bad guys trip when they're running through the back, running through the house or whatever, like that thing that skewers Bob 2.0 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Part of the mechanical.
Might have been some kind of thing that everybody else knows not to touch, but this idiot had no idea,
Right.
And it gets skewered,
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm imagining. I know you said he gets pierced through the side, but I'm imagining more like something just
because we wanted him
squashes
to
his head like a grape.
Well, because there was a whole conversation I had in mind as they were escaping.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you
Plus-
want them to get away?
plus
Oh,
there's
yeah.
the
Plus, he
whole
has to be
sacrifice.
sacrificed. That's true. That's
Right,
true.
right,
Fair.
I mean, that's
Fair.
not necessarily true. We could sacrifice a Bob here and then still have a new Bob to sacrifice in the Jorogumo someday.
Yeah, but then he wouldn't have earned it.
And plus, it's
Why does he have to earn it?
We need a failure so people
I
knows
kind of
what
agree with
happens
that.
to a Bob
I think
when
that-
they don't do their job.
Desmond sacrificing failure. Bob
I
sets
think
a
that-
statement.
I don't know. Because we also discussed the possibility of just Bob's, hey, you have the place of honor in the summoning circle, and pop goes Bob. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
goes the Bob because the Bob goes pop.
You're trying to make the Bob even more disposable.
The
Yeah,
Bob.
it's everybody's
It's
mistakes.
the Bob, not Bob.
I don't know.
not Robert.
I find it humorous that everyone can screw up, but somehow it's always Bob's
It's
fault.
always on
Always
Bob, yeah.
It's not Caleb. He was there.
Well, Caleb doesn't
And
want that
that's
job.
what I'm
But
saying.
he's doing
Well,
the best he
Caleb's
can with the
smart
tools
enough
you
to
give me,
want
and
the
you give me a
job.
lousy Bob.
Yeah, that's the point.
This is your fault, Blackwell.
Bobs tend to
This
have-
is your fault.
Bobs tend to have higher IQs than Caleb, but Caleb is smarter than Bob.
He's
Wise.
There are different types of intelligence.
Right. What, Caleb? Why aren't you my boss? I'm too smart for that, Bob.
Right, yeah. So, and obviously Jennifer knows well enough to stay the hell away from that
Oh, I
position
think
also.
I think at first she's resentful, right? At first, I think that Jennifer would have been resentful not having that position.
Right.
And then we're on Bob 3, and she goes, you know what? Happy right where I am.
Yep.
I'm just going to
Well,
bury
she
my
kind
face
of
in this
has
book.
to be. She can't be in a front and center position
Right.
and still be telling Desmond how to run.
Yeah,
things.
she can't be too conspicuous.
She has to be back in the shadows
Right.
a little bit.
Yeah,
well, that's the other thing. Blackwell would not listen to the advice of another person that he actually respected. But, if a woman's whispering in his ear suggestions or something, it'll slowly get through his head.
Sure. And she's smart and manipulative, right? Like, she didn't give him the Joragumo ritual outright.
Right.
She said, oh, you're going to summon a Joragumo? With the book already open to the page because she set it up this way.
Right.
Oh, you mean like that?
Oh, that's brilliant. They're vicious.
She makes him think everything is his idea.
Right. And then, of course. Yes, of course I was going to do that.
Right.
Yeah, no, she is way smarter than him in that regard.
Oh, yeah, by miles.
So,
and he's not a dumb guy. He's just so egocentric.
Right. His ego gets in the way of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the thing. And I think a lot of guys are like that. I think a lot of guys trip over their ego and ruin their lives.
Well, yeah, and he lives largely in his head, so he's not really paying attention to what's happening around him.
Mm-hmm.
Right, oh yes, it was serendipitous that I turned to the page of the Joragumo at the moment that, Jennifer notices.
Yeah, serendipitous with her finger on the page.
Right. He's too arrogant to give somebody else the credit that they're due.
But she's smart enough to see that, I think. Like I said, she's manipulating the situation.
And it doesn't matter, ultimately. She's not looking for Desmond's respect.
She's looking
to manipulate things in the way that she wants them to go.
Right.
Till she gets the bail.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it's a good idea. Mm-hmm. I like her. She's
manipulative and evil.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's usually what I go for. And then they ruin my life. So
that'll do it.
Okay. So this is a good build-up. I think that the Werewolves Anonymous thing, or well, it's not werewolves, right? It's just wares. It's all wares.
It's all like it
are to be interesting. I know you were thinking about a were-giraffe somewhere in there.
I just find it truly an amusing
initially, we did say that we were thinking about making Philip a were-bear because...
he's a bear.
Well, because originally I was like a were-otter, and we weren't sure if that was too offensive, so...
I don't know.
I don't know if, when you're on this subject matter, if one is worse than the other, to be honest.
I don't know.
Although an otter would be amusing.
But I do like Philip being a brawny kind of guy.
All right,
okay, but did we outline on air that Philip is supposed to be Wilhelm's interest? I don't remember.
See, I'm not even sure Philip is of that persuasion.
Well,
I don't know that we've established
that. If the job board was a gift from Philip, then him and Wilhelm have to be pretty close friends, right?
What?
Like, I don't feel like there's necessarily a relationship there, but he's...
Well, in Wilhelm's head.
Yeah.
Support groups do tend to make close
crush of Wilhelm's
people out of each other, you know what I mean?
And even if they are both gay, doesn't mean that Wilhelm is Philip's type.
Right. Well, no, I think that Wilhelm... probably frets over that quite a bit, right? That's why he's so weird and neurotic half the time, is he really likes Philip, but doesn't know if Philip likes him back, And
it could be that he doesn't even know whether Philip is gay or not, and putting yourself out there in that way
or
is
worse.
Scary in these days.
Sure.
Back then, it would have been super...
Wilhelm being as neurotic and buttoned up as he is, it might be entirely possible that part of his attraction to Philip is that he's very outspoken. It's kind of, granted, in the day and age you can't be out, but he's out as much as you can be in that era. Where Wilhelm isn't. Philip actually doesn't know Wilhelm's gay.
Here's the thing.
Imagine that.
That's possible. And back then it's probably not something that you're just, outwardly...
Oh yeah, you're going to take the risk and say that?
Right. But even if Wilhelm recognizes that Philip is gay and that he's attracted to Philip, the bottom line is it's still a risk to flirt with him, to come on to him, to try to make something of that.
Well, and I imagine that Philip is rather wealthy, from a family of wealthy people. They've got a
office organization,
rather successful office organization products company. I mean, his station is above Wilhelm's. Even though Wilhelm himself is a scientist of sorts or what have you, wealth always trumps education. Mm-hmm. So there's another snag right there. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to write the whole building a romance between the two of them. Should all of it happen like that? I think that somebody in this
maybe
group,
down the road, yeah.
I was going to say, in the chapters I'm responsible for, I might be able to breadcrumb it a little, but I can't go very far with it.
No, I don't think so either.
If you could go Ron and Hermione with it. It can take 8 books.
But you could also kind of make Wilhelm a little bit more bashful around him.
That's a
maybe
bad
little
example because
bit.
you could end up with a different person because that was originally supposed to be Harry.
Yeah, I know. And our guy is Harry.
Oh,
my
God.
God.
And there's another Lokiism.
You're
Okay.
Philip
but I
Vaughn
think-
dad joke today. Oh my
I
God.
think that beyond that, we need to start figuring out how to make the team come together in a way that will be believable.
Yeah.
In order to rescue Wilhelm, because this isn't going to be a matter of they're completely in different directions in every previous chapter, and all of a sudden they work.
Well, we could
There
Scooby-Doo
has
them,
to be What do you mean?
Okay.
where the team initially separates, so
Uh-huh.
Fred can get in the pants of the two girls, and then Shag and Scoop go and rob the pantry, right?
I think you were watching a different cartoon because I'm pretty sure he was only to the blonde one or redhead.
It depended on the episode. But anyways,
Come
you basically, the team splits
hell's
up
her name?
at first.
Daphne.
Yes.
I think maybe they fail to find Wilhelm in two separate groups. And they have to, in the end, maybe we need to find a way to write it to where they need each other's helps to pull it off. Helps. Or whatever. So yeah, they have to.
I think maybe this is the point where we start bringing in some of Meredith's skills.
Sure.
Like, I think that we've kind of glossed over just how badass she is, So maybe this is a time for us to start making her, like, come forward and be like, listen, and, like, actually take over mentoring.
Yeah, I mean, she has avoided this authoritative leadership role before, where it might be time for her to just say, you know what, grow the hell up, let's get this done. you know?
Right. Yeah, I feel like maybe she was kind of taking a back seat and letting things play out as they did.
Right.
Just because there was no reason for her to get involved in the fight thus far.
And who likes
but
being,
now,
the dictator,
Well,
Right.
I think there's plenty of motivation, which I can illustrate with a really bad example that's a little off color. But I was going to say, it's like after 9/11, everyone in mutual shock was as polite as it could be driving home, taking turns.
Yeah.
We all got united in horror. And
Right.
what I'm trying to say is,
In
if you
dark
took
times.
one of their own, one of their
Yeah.
family, they're going to
come
respond
together.
with teeth out or claws out or whatever. But the thing is that that's one thing to say as motivation. It's another thing to demonstrate. And I don't know that we've all laid enough for that. But
Right.
well, we do have Meredith's backstory, and I'll go into her bio a little bit here, which, if you want to look it up yourself, that's on the website, which you can go to read the full thing. But we did
the Dark and Stormy Nights .home.org blog.
So what we pointed out in her bio is that she lost her husband to something paranormal, and that once he was gone, she kind of brought in the others and kind of set up the team, A, so that she wasn't alone, and B, to kind of figure out what happened to her husband. So she's basically the kind of in the background person who put the team together.
Right, I think she was kind of hoping that they would rise to the occasion.
Come
and that's just
together
not
and work
happening.
together, right? So now that it's really not working and it needs to, I think that she might step up.
Right. Yeah, that's a good thought.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, let's write this and come back together next week with more.
Sounds good.
All right. See you next time.
Greetings, dames and knights. If you like what we do, follow us on Twitter at The Dark and Stormy K1 or our website at thedarkandstormynights.home.blog. Or you can rate us on Podbean, Google Play Music, or iTunes.